Um, just finished it. I really loved the kind of like romantic dynamic between the two. Um, it was really interesting to see like kind of them meet on the train and then see where it went. It sounds like super adventurous. I don't think I would do that. Um, I think that it was pretty weird to go off with someone that you haven't met. And like even the scene after they get off the train, she asks, "What's your name?" So I think it was pretty irresponsible and very like spur of the moment that I personally would not have done. Um, into something that is a little more technical. I like noticed the Dutch angle of the Ferris wheel later on in the movie. I'm not really sure why they chose to do that. I would think it would be more for like almost as a transition or like to communicate like the dramatic effects or like they do end up having their first argument there afterwards. So maybe that was like the transition to that or something for you to expect as like the audience. Um, the relationship between Jesse and Celine, I think it was very like exciting, very like almost puppy love, and like um, you had there was a lot of like anticipating what was going to happen between the two. You never knew exactly like which way it could have gone. Um, I do think like the movie did a good job of communicating who they were as people. Um, like Celine really liked kind of the the magic of things and the existential like part of like poem reading or like the poems and predictions of what's going to happen, whereas Jesse was like very solid, and I think his past relationship really showed through in like his behaviors and view of the world. Um, I did notice the walk and talk and kind of the contrast between them talking about like the birthing dance, and I think it was a pretty big theme that was talked about in the middle of the movie of like birth versus death, and that like when they were in the church, Jesse felt that he was like a young kid, and then Celine had thought a lot about death, and that could have been about like her grandma just being old, and you know like her relationship with her grandma and maybe her fear of like dying soon, um, is kind of what I got from that. um, I really had wished when they went to the bar together, it had seemed a little random and a little off, but I would have liked to see the bartender give Jesse the address of the bar or something a little bit more to complete that scene of like, hey, I'm going to pay you back for this bottle of wine. Um, it just didn't seem very complete and very kind of like choppy. Um, I like also with continuity was that they included the scene of Jesse and Celine in front of the statue and saying like, "Oh, hey, we didn't end up going to that play," um, because that was like really early on and something you had like looked forward to seeing like what's gonna happen at the play, something exciting, or something big that you can look forward to. Um, at the end of the movie, I like that they had flashed the different locations that they had been with like it being virtually empty. Um, I had looked up a couple of things about the movie, and I think that it was really interesting that none of it was improv. I thought it was all. Um, I think some of it was improv just because of the connection they had together. But I will watch the second movie. Okay, so this review is on Before Sunset. I don't think I said in my last video, or like just previously, if I thought they were going to meet up or not. I did think they were going to meet up, and in like the 6 months time, and I guess that means like I'm the romantic side and not the cynic side. Later on, they talk about like what might make you a cynic and what makes you a romantic, and that like if you're hurt more, then you do tend to be on the cynic side. So like I think that's true. Um, I also was very surprised to hear that he went to the spot and like put up his number, and like he looked around, and I think like I believe him when he said that he wrote the book because he wanted to find where she was and like continue where they had left off, and it was kind of like such a beautiful start. um I think there was a lot more walk and talks in this movie and a lot more movement and like intentionally making sure they're in spaces that are like not stagnant. um I think like all the walk and talks to each location and the boat really communicated that they're like constantly moving forward, even in the relationship and like just in life. Um, and then like the car also was movement. On the boat, I was wondering if they had recorded and like that was the actual water sound, and like how they would have controlled that volume, whether they put like a mic closer to their mouths and that's how they got a more clear recording of their voice over water. I was wondering maybe if it could have been Foley, but like I don't know how they would have separated that while they were on the boat. Um, to They had the 30-second silence. I don't know if it was completely 30 seconds, but it was a good chunk of time when they were walking up the staircase to her place in the end of the movie. I think it was really interesting that they had that of like, to communicate kind of the nervousness of like, hey, what's going to happen? What's our next move? They had like the nervous giggles, but that's something that had like actually really stood out to me. And then I noticed a common theme, or not theme, but a common behavior that they added into this movie from the last movie of like them not exchanging glances, but like one looking at the other while the other person is looking away. I'm not really sure what their idea was for that or why they would have done that. But like it's really cute. One of the things about continuity in this movie that I was unsure about was that Celine had asked that how was the ending of the movie, like the book that he had written, but she had said a couple times that she read it. I'm not really sure if like maybe I misunderstood that. But I think it's really cute that like she had written her song about the night, and then that was her way of like remembering what they had gone through together, and then his was writing the book. I was really sad that I didn't get to see what happens afterward because he was married and she had a boyfriend. And I don't, like they had said in the first movie, that they can't make it work because he's in America and she's in Paris. So I'm kind of excited to see what the third movie is going to bring. So we'll see you in the next part. So for Before Midnight, I liked it, but in the end it was very exhausting, almost as if like I had argued, so I guess that's a sign of a good movie. But I figure let's start at the beginning where they have like past the airport when they're in the car. I really appreciated the car scene, especially since we had to do our own split screen car scenes. But one thing that I had noticed was the lighting, like the shadows casted by like overhead trees and stuff. It started flickering a lot more when they started arguing. I think it really added to like the tension in the car and like made me feel like, okay, what's going to happen after this? How serious is the argument? Like, it helped me realize this is going to be like a common theme throughout the movie. As we move forward, the music, when they get to the place they're staying, really was like lighthearted and kind of showed like they're on vacation and, you know, it's just kind of daily activities. I thought it was a really nice ad. When he had talked about his new book with the group of guys outside, it like I really had paid attention to it just because it seems like he made a lot of connections between his books and his life. There were breaks in this walk and talk that included the sky. So there were the animals when they were walking to the hotel. They had the sky and the sun shining through some bushes. And then like they showed a landscape, kind of including the cathedral and the dog. So I think all the transitions there had the sky in common. Then we move into the hotel room, which made me notice as soon as he turned on the light, all the lights turned on, which was like, I don't know what hotel where one light switch turns on all the light bulbs, including like the lamps in the room, which was just something I noticed. The argument in the hotel like started off very relatable, and even earlier on when she had asked the like nobody can win questions, I used to do that, so that was really relatable. And it just made me think of more like how arguments can stray from the original thought or concept that made the argument like start. It had started at Henry and then moved on to like how unhappy she was with certain things or like her fears. I think it was a really realistic argument. And then that's all for Before Midnight. I love to see the commonalities between the three movies, including the walk and talks, where you can see like there's always movement happening in the movie. Even when they're sitting down, you see people in the background that are constantly moving. There's things going on around them. Even though they themselves are not aware of like people moving around, we always get the feeling that there's growing, there's looking forward. I think that's a very like great thing to have in the movie. I also like to see the common conversation topics that was brought up in each movie, like death and birth, as I had mentioned in the first movie, ended up kind of coming back at the end, talking about like his grandma died, and you know, you kind of follow them throughout their life with these thoughts, and like you have your own opinion throughout the movie with them. Overall, I did really enjoy the trilogy. The overall review is that I loved the trilogy. I thought it was a great representation of relationships and how they progress over time, where you start off with like puppy love and excitement, all the way to being comfortable and knowing each other's flaws and accepting the other. I do think the span of the story worked out really well. It seems like a lot when I first thought about it. 9 years is a long time, but I think that was perfect timing to represent certain milestones in their life. That enough time had passed for a lot of like information to be given at each point that they had met up. The film festival, I thought this was a great pick. Would I would probably recommend this to other friends so that they can see. I'll probably show my family. It was a really great movie, or great movies, to represent love, and it really prompts a lot of thoughts. What changed for me from the beginning was the way they, like, priorities, I think, changed the most for me. The priority in the beginning was to, like, reach outside the box. They just met on a train. It seemed like an overall adventurous feeling. Whereas in the last movie, priorities had changed. They had a family. He has a son that's not in the same country, and family seems to be the priority. After watching all of the YouTube videos, I think one of the things that stood out the most was that it was made in 15 days. I think that before sunset, it was shot in 3 weeks and rehearsed in 2 weeks. I think that's actually incredible, given that they did a lot of their shooting outside and they had to make up for the different lighting. I think that answered one of my earlier questions about like how they were able to get the lighting so consistent throughout the day. Especially in the first movie, they had like from morning until overnight, where you just had to be very specific about the lighting throughout the day. They had said that they shot long scenes, which makes a lot of sense, and it makes it kind of relatable to the work we did in this class. I did really enjoy some of the videos that talked about like all three of them working together to create this, and that it was really interesting that they had the male Jesse, I forgot his name, who he played, but for him to write the female role and vice versa, it did show through in the movies, and I like didn't feel like one overpowered the other, so that came through really well. I did see that they tackled the first movie with a more minimalist view. It definitely did like concentrate on their connection, and I think that it was really great that they can come up with a sequel, and that there was enough demand for it. The trilogy worked out really nice. I loved all of the movies. It did, like, one of the things that the director said that resonated with me was that it was more of a reflection and like a mirror, so it was able to speak to multiple different people who would be in the audience, and they can really see themselves in the relationship, whether it was like a breakup, they were just starting out, or it was a long-term relationship. I did like to see kind of behind the scenes and how they all work together to like recreate scenes, or even like change different words to kind of make this scene their own. But overall, I really enjoyed the trilogy, and I think like I would definitely recommend it to keep it for next semester.